Hey Stampers, and welcome to this week's episode of Getting Started with Card Making. I'm super excited to have you here, and if you're here, be sure to leave me a comment in the comments or hashtag replay. So those of you who don't know me, my name is Kristy Coromandel, and you can find me on my blog and my website at kristycoromandel.com. This episode's Getting Started with Card Making, for those that are new, is all about those who are first-time card makers who are creating for the first time themselves, unsure where to get started or how to get started, and are overwhelmed by the multiple amount of supplies and product that's available in the market, and as to where do I start buying it and how do I actually go about creating a card. So last week we had talked about cleaning your stamps, and I shared with you 4 different ways that you could clean your stamps. Now if you missed that episode, be sure to go back and you'll be able to find that here in our Facebook page. This week, and also I did set you a challenge, and your challenge last week or last time was to decide on which cleaning method was going to work for you now. Obviously, I did share a few simple ones and some that would work now and some that would work long term. So if you're just starting out and you just need a quick, easy solution, then pick one of those, and then you can always work up to one of the long-term solutions for cleaning your stamps. This week we're going to be talking about adhesive. There is so much different adhesives out there, and it can get quite confusing as to which one should I buy now, which one do I need most, and what am I going to use it all for. So let's turn the camera around, and I'm going to share with you all the different types of adhesive, and we're going to share some examples on how and when and why we should use them. Okay, so here is a list of all the adhesive that is currently available on the market. So I'm just going to move some of these aside, and we're just going to gradually start with one at a time so we don't all get confused, because there is so many. Okay, so the most common one here is what we call our SNAIL adhesive. It's like our tape runner of adhesive. And hi Wendy, great to have you here. Thank you for sharing. This is the most popular adhesive that you'd probably use when creating with your cards. So for example, if I was to have here, I've got this little butterfly here, and I can stick this to my cardstock. I'm just using some scrap paper here today. Actually, let's get a bigger piece. We simply just use it like, and our adhesive will actually come out on there, and then we can use that. Actually, nothing came out. That was pretty weird. Let's try that again. I had it upside down. That doesn't help, does it? Let's try that again. There we go. Okay, so now the adhesive comes out, and then you can stick that down to your project or stamp your card front down as well. So let's find an example. Might have here. Okay, so this was a card, if you watched my Facebook Live this week, that we created out of our Facebook Live. Just take it out of the plastic. It's got multiple different adhesives we've used on here. So this yellow piece of designer paper here, it's flat down on there. That was used with our SNAIL adhesive, by just pulling our SNAIL adhesive down on the back of that to place that down. Just exactly the same we did that. Now, these also come in a refill pack, which is this right here, in a refill. So when your adhesive does run out, and I think I've got one here that's run out, they are very easy to change over. So I'm going to quickly show you how to do that. So, and the refill pack comes with a lot more adhesive on it. I think it's got 10 meters or 20 meters on a refill pack, and only 7 or 8 meters on a normal pack. So it's definitely worthwhile buying the refills. There are, I think it's a lot cheaper to buy the refills as well. Okay, so you got these little nozzles right here. Just hold this up a bit further. So we're just going to push on that, and this separates into 2 pieces like this. So we can get rid of this. We don't need this anymore because this has now been finished, but we keep this piece here and we put it back on the exact same way. So I'm going to put this little nozzle here right on inside that there. So if you did see me before, I did have a little piece of this here. I did remove it, so make sure you remove that, and then I can just stick this on through there and push it until it clicks into place, and then I can move my lever, and now my adhesive is ready to use again. So very quick and easy to reuse to do your refill. So I recommend that you always carry a refill with you when you have your adhesive. Now, another most popular adhesive to use is this, liquid glue. And if you've been following me for quite some time, you'll know that this is probably my preferred method of adhesive that I like to use. Okay, so reason being is that I find that I can use it like SNAIL. So I can use it to stick down my little cardstock pieces or my embellishments as well. I can do it to use some fine things. So like this, for example, is a bit more thinner. And if I try to use SNAIL on that, I'm going to get all this little overlap, and I'm going to get parts of my lettering that's not going to be covered as well. So I can then simply squeeze out a little bit. That was a bit much, sorry. All around it. I can control how much liquid does come out, and then I can simply, upside down, stick that down to my card front. Now I did put a bit more, too much glue on, as you can see there, but however it does dry clear as well. So if you do get too much on, it's not going to overly be concerning as well. Now the other thing too, this is really good at is, here's a little thin piece here that's really good. Or I've got these little butterfly embellishments here, so I can, this is a new bottle, so clearly it's coming out really, really fast, unlike my other blue tip. Let me grab that one. So I can easily stick down these embellishments using my glue as well. So you can see there I haven't got that much on that one there. And they can stick those down. Now the other thing about this glue is that it also has a big nozzle right at the back front here, so that when you are creating with large pieces of paper, so you might be scrapbooking, and you might have a big 12 by 12 sheet that you want to do, you can use this as well, and that will get nice up into the corners as well. So that's another thing that I really love about this liquid glue. So I have a drawer full of this. This is my go-to glue, to be honest, and I do have it in a little Tupperware container like this that I found in my Tupperware drawer, and I just have mine sit on my table like this, so that the glue is always going to be pointing down the bottom, and I'm not going to have to shake my bottle constantly to get it out. So that's how it sits on my desk. I just have a little container for it to hold it into. So I like it because I can do these little small embellishments and these little small things as well as I can even use it to mat a whole sheet of cardstock underneath. And if you've been watching my Wednesday Facebook Live project tutorials, you'll notice that I do use this liquid glue in just about every video. Okay, so that is our liquid glue. Now the next one that's very similar is our fine tip glue pen. This too is also good for doing small embellishments like this with the very thin edge. Okay, so you'll find this one comes out and has a very fine, I don't know if you can see that, tip there. And the best thing about it is that in the lid here, you can see that, it's got this little pin. Okay, so this pin, when you put it in, goes straight back into the bottle to make sure that that isn't going to dry up in there, because it is a very, very thin, fine tip that's not going to dry up. And then I can simply, and it comes out clear, use this as well for those really fine embellishments, especially your die cuts, because we all have those really thin die cuts too that sometimes, okay, so I didn't do that very well, okay, but you get the gist. You get how it's supposed to work. My gluing skills aren't that good today. The other thing too that this fine tip glue pen is good for is sequins. So here's another little thing here, and I have my little picker tool. Okay, and this little picker tool, piecing tool, actually is good for picking up your little, because it just sticks to it, right? Okay, so, well, that didn't work. So I can just put these little dots where I want my sequence to go. Pick up a sequence, and I can stick it right down. Okay, and it's can glue my little sequence down on a strip there. The other thing this glue tip is good for, now my daughter ran off with my card the other day, this is a project for my next month's online class. I have, and here's a sneak peek of it, on the top of my cake here, I have used, I don't know if you can see that, the fine tip glue pen over the icing to create like a 3D effect on it. Okay, so it's good for using the fine tip stuff, like fine stuff like sequence, and also your fine die cuts and sticking that stuff down in the really small areas. But you can also make embellishments and do some texture and stuff onto your cards there as well. So there's a sneak peek of one of the cards in our online class starting in July. Okay, so that's our fine tip glue pen. To be honest, I don't use this one as often. It's good to have, but I find that my multi-purpose liquid glue can do exactly the same thing as my fine tip glue pen, except for doing something like this. Okay, so if you've got a specific technique or that you want it for, then that's when I recommend you get this. And mind you, I've had this bottle for years. I've never, like I said, I don't use it that often, but this is definitely my go-to glue. Okay, another piece of adhesive that I recommend that you can never live without is Stampin Dimensionals. And this is great for when you're wanting to add a bit of height to your embellishments, or even your card matting, etc. Okay, so here I can take it off. I can raise up my wings. Okay, so hold this up a bit. Okay, so you can see here that it's just slightly off the page. Now I can do a little trick. Now I don't have any more coloured butterflies, so we'll use a white one. Okay, if I want to get more height, I can simply take off my dimensional. You can put another one exactly on top of it, and we'll do inside of this card. Okay, and since I've got another white one here, just to show you the difference, put this one down here. Okay, so I'm not sure if you can see the difference there, but this one is more raised than what this one is, because we've got two dimensionals underneath. Okay, can you see that there? Yep. Okay, so you can add additional height to your dimensionals. Now we also have these little ones here that are about 1/2 centimetre wide, where these ones are about 1 centimetre, for those little fine areas. So they're good for these little mini butterflies out of our butterfly duet punch. Okay, and you can double those ones up as well. Okay, so those of you who were with me on Wednesday and saw my card that we did, this piece here has got dimensionals on the back of it. I don't know if you can see those. Okay, just to raise that up a little bit as well. Okay, so dimensionals are definitely a must, and there's something that I use all the time. Okay, next one is mini glue dots. Now when I first went to my very first card making workshop class before I became a demonstrator, I saw the demo there had introduced us to glue dots, and I thought, oh wow, they're so awesome. And I went and bought some because I thought they were just so great. And then by the time they arrived, I had no clue what to do with them. And so they kind of sat in the corner of my desk until probably a few months later, about 6 months later, I went to another workshop and the demonstrator again used them, and I'm like, oh, that's what you do with those. So There's so many different things you can do, and I suggest that if you do buy something and you're not sure about that, you should write it down so that you remember next time. Now, another thing you can do with this sequence is we can put it right here on the glue dot. Now these glue dots, I don't know if you can see that in the camera, but they have these little bits of adhesive that are just dots of adhesive, right, on this tape. And so I can stick my sequence on it. Come on. Okay, and then I can peel it off. And then when I stick that down now to my project, it's got adhesive on the back of it already. Okay, so it's good for sequence. It's also good for tying ribbon. So let me show you what I mean. So here's some ribbon here. I'm just going to cut a piece. So if you're wrapping ribbon around a card, this piece is a bit long, so let me just trim that down a bit. Okay, I can put a glue dot on each end. Okay, one on that end, one on this end. And I can then wrap my ribbon around my card. Okay, and there it is around the back. So normally sometimes you might put a bit of adhesive on the backing and wrap your ribbon around, but in this case I've used a glue dot, and that way I can make sure that it's nice and straight. The other thing that it's good for is if I was to tie this, for example, into a bow, and doing bows live they never work for me anyway, but we'll do a rough bow. Okay, so my very, very, very rough bow, I can once again pop that onto a glue dot, and I can stick that then to my project without having to worry about messy adhesive and stuff. So, for example, this one right here, on Wednesday, we created this bow using our twine, and behind that, I actually have stuck that down using a glue dot. Okay, so you can see there's about 3-4 different types of adhesive that I've used on this project alone. I've got SNAIL, I've got liquid glue, I've used SNAIL, I've used glue dots, and I have used Stampin Dimensionals all on this project here. Okay, but you don't need to have all of it. Okay, if I didn't have a glue dot, I could have just used my liquid adhesive. I could use my liquid adhesive to stick everything else down that SNAIL can do. But I probably would need dimensionals if I want to add some dimension. Now the last bit of adhesive that we have is our tear tape. Let me move all this out of the way. Is our tear tape. So for example, I would use tear tape when creating 3D projects. So this is very, very rough, okay? Sorry. Okay, let's go. So I'm creating my little pocket here, okay? So I can put my adhesive down the side. This is strong adhesive, so this is really good for holding your 3D projects or anything that you need something strong. And the reason why it's tear tape is that you can actually tear the end with your finger. You don't need a pair of scissors. So if you, back in the day when we used to have red liner tape, or sticky strip I think it was called, you'd need a pair of scissors to cut off. This you don't. So we just simply put our tape down. I just like to put my finger or a bone folder along there just to make sure that's all stuck. Then I can peel off the backing. And then I can now stick this, and there's my, it's all stuck down, okay? Now, if you make a mistake, you don't want to try and pull this apart because it will rip your project completely, unless you haven't really pushed it down yet. So you don't want to, so like if I was to pull it off now, so it's ripping, okay? So you don't want to pull it apart, okay? This is what tear tape does. It's really strong, it holds strong, it's great for those 3D projects that you might do, as well as. Okay, so there you go. That's all the adhesive there is. So let's bring it all back in. We've got our snail, we've got glue dots. Oh, the other thing glue dots are good for is for sticking down your embellishments. So here as well, I've got these little trinket bits. So just stick it on the thing and then just pull it off. And then you can add that to your project like so. That's another thing I like glue dots for. What else? We're missing some adhesive. Oh, this one here. Oh, and of course our dimensionals. How can we forget our trusty dimensionals? Okay, so these are all our adhesives that we currently have that are available on the market. Now, if you're just starting out, I would recommend that you either get a SNAIL adhesive or the mono liquid glue. Get one of these. If it was me, I'd go this. Okay, this sticks a lot better. It's easier to manipulate. There's just so many more pluses with it than SNAIL, and it will last longer, okay? You'll be able to spread it and use it more than you would this one. And then I'll definitely get some dimensionals. And I wouldn't worry about getting the small ones. Definitely get the large ones because you can always cut them down if you need a smaller size. Okay, so those are the two adhesives I would definitely recommend that you purchase, but it's entirely up to you which ones that you prefer to go with. So there's our adhesive. I hope you've learnt a lot today, and so I challenge you to go and decide on what adhesive you would like to purchase and go ahead and gather that adhesive. Now, next time we are going to be talking about creating our card bases and how to create a card base. It's the common question I get asked: how do I create my card base? How many card bases can I create out of a sheet of cardstock? And how do I get those nice straight lines and score lines every time as well? So I'm going to show you a couple of little tips with that. Now, it is school holidays here in Australia starting today. So our next Getting Started with Card Making series will be back on the 19th of July at 10 o'clock. So until then, I'll see you next time. And if you've got any questions, don't forget to let me know, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye for now.